Hello guys, so welcome to the channel. So today we are going to do a rapid one, and we are going to continue with SMC. So we're going to be looking at gold today. Let's see what's happening to gold actually. So if we look at gold, this is from the higher time frame, that's the 4 hour time frame. If we see what's happening since then, let me step it down to the 4 hour time frame. We were in a downward trend. Gold was actually dropping so fast. Then since then we had a change of character from this point here. This was the last break to the downside, and from there on we had the change of character, right? The market shifted, it broke the structure. We then had a push down. Let me step down to the 1 hour time frame so you can see clearly. We then had a push down here, and from this zone here it did give us some entry points. If we step down to the 15 minute, I think that's going to be quite clear for us to see here. So we can see here that the markets did give us some good entry points there. We had a change of character upon that pullback. Then it gave us that particular move to like enter the market. So we did enter from this zone after the retracement, as we all know already. So that was actually a good move. Then since then, we had actually been having some good structures here, and at this point here we actually had two losses. There was a loss trade that we took, and it's all part of the strategy. If you're trading and you make a loss, it's all part of the plan as well, right? Even though we took out some profit from it, but definitely overall if you're waiting for it to hit TP, you would have had a loss. Because why then? What am I talking about then? If you look closely, we had another break of structure at this point. Now while we were here, you can realize that we had a retracement. There was a good fair value gap available. If you look closely, you realize that this fair value gap was very present. So at this point, I actually took a pending order. I didn't wait for confirmation to enter that particular trade. So if you can look at it from here, from this point of view here, like this, I entered from here, and it didn't take us through to TP. It actually just took us halfway though, and yeah, that was that. And on another hand again, if we were to function like with the confirmation entry, this was definitely the last break here to the downside. This was definitely the down break to the downside from this zone. This was the last break to the downside, and then it dished out, let me just put it there, break or something. Then it dished out a change of character at this zone to the upside of the market. This is where the change of character happened here. We're waiting for confirmation entry before actually entering this particular market. We then had that other zone. So if we then had this here, definitely you're waiting for this pullback. So once I saw this was another entry that I did take from this zone here, and it took us out again, right? The reason why I'm showing you guys these losses is to make you guys understand that sometimes you could do everything all right, but it still takes you out. But sometimes you need to count how many times does this work and how many times does this not work, right? That's what you have to pay a lot of attention to per se. So since then, we actually took two losses, one here and one here, but it simply showed us one thing. This was not necessarily the area where the market was intending to start pushing up from, right? Because here we can realize that all this zone here was a liquidity zone, and from this liquidity zone the market had to clear out all of that before taking it the right direction. So that was what really happened. Sometimes you make the trade to make the errors, to understand what happened, what went wrong, how was I thinking before it did go wrong, and then next time when you want to execute, then you start making proper changes based on that. So moving forward, we can then see that since then, why are we targeting this zone? We are targeting it because we had a change of character, and once we see a change of character of this nature, we know that the markets are telling us that we are about to shift direction, right? So now, following the same principle, we can then see that we came to this particular area. This area here was quite visible that the market was going to react from it per se. This is a break of structure. All of this line is part of the origin that caused that break. So the market is likely to react from any of these layers here before moving upward. So the layer that gives us that change of character nicely is the one we follow. Sometimes you could see it wrongly, sometimes you could see it nicely. And the way sometimes for you to see it nicely is when it's quite clear. Like in this case, I was not supposed to enter the position from here. I was supposed to enter that same position at this point, even though I had a loss from here. It's fine. But I know very well that it actually does work, because right from here the market did show us that, and this is gold by the way. So since then, um the market reacted definitely from this origin, right? And we had that bullish trend to the upside here. So now following these internal structures, we can see clearly what was actually taking place. We then had a break of structure to the upside here. We had this break of structure to the upside, and once we had that break of structure, as I said, you're waiting for the market to give you that pullback. Once it gives you that pullback, you're not entering. Your entry is not on this pullback, right? You need to wait for what? The change of character. So if you're looking for where the change of character happened, of course, this is the origin where the market is reacting from. It came to you. You're not entering because it came here, right? You're entering simply because the market did give us a change of. This was the last break to the downside, following that internal structure, and then it gave us a change of character at this zone here. This is where the change of character did happen. If you can look at it clearly, let me just put a change there. Let me step it down to the 5-minute time frame so you guys can see all clearly. So this was the last break to the downside, and this is where the change of character did happen clearly. And as I said, once you see that, you need to definitely wait for the pullback. Yeah, this pullback is where you enter from, around this zone here, right? So based on FVG, based on the structures that it has here, you can literally see what is going to clear out, and you get in from that zone. So this was a good position. I took this position, and now you see the strategy does works, right? So we had this. Now following this, we then had another. If I shift this to the side, following this, we then had another break of structure to the upside. If you look closely, we had another break of structure here, and once we had this break of structure to the upside, definitely the market reacted from this zone here. I see that it didn't really give us. Let me see, we had a break of structure, let's put it as such. We had a break of structure to the upside. Now you're waiting for the markets to react. It could react from here. You don't just enter from here because you reacted. This is definitely the last break of structure to the downside, and this is the last break of structure to the downside. So if there's anything you're waiting for the market to clear out this origin here. It's rather unfortunate it cleared it around this zone, but since then it did give us a retracement, right? It gave us this retracement, but this retracement is based on this break of structure here. So it didn't actually give us the retracement. So that's why we'll just put this one aside. We'll move to the next structure that is giving us. We had a break of structure around this zone here to the upside, and since then we can see that the market is definitely going to react around one of these origins. Right now, this particular week here is what attracted the market. So now, as a trader following the confirmation entry before you make a move, you're not just going to enter because the markets came here. No, you're going to try to find the last break of structure to the downside. So while this market was coming down, you can see here that we had this break of structure to the downside, but once it pushed back, it never gave us a change of character. So in as much as we had a retracement, there was no point of entry there. Likewise, we did have another break of structure from here, from this zone here to the downside here. We had another break of structure at this point here, and once we had this break of structure to the downside, this is the origin that caused it. But while it retraced here, it didn't give us that entry. That's why so far so good. In as much as the market is reacting from this zone, it has not yet closed below this week. In as much as the market is reacting from this zone per se, it never gave us any entry yet. The only moment that this market is giving us an entry is at this zone here, where this is the last break of structure to the downside. We can then see that this is where the change of character did happen. You see that this is a change of character happening at this zone. So this is where the entry had to take place here. You had to make your entry from this zone here per se, right? If you can look closely as well, it equally gave us now the main break of structure here to the upside. It gave us this break of structure here to the upside, and once it gave us that, you're coming from this perspective, but here already tells us that your entry should have been from here, right? So that's literally gold and likes of that. But so far so good, we'll just be observing it, and I think it's actually having that bullish momentum. So looking at GBP GPY, this actually has been a good one per se. Let me shift to the higher time frame so that we can all see it together. Looking at the 4 hour time frame and what's actually happening now, let me just step it up to the, let's just see, have a higher perspective. So we have this area here that's actually pulling the market towards itself, but the market is not yet there. So but before that, we realize that from this part here we are actually in a bullish trajectory, right? And so it gives us that that sentiment that let's maintain our bullish focus then. So, and let's also be careful why it arrives at this particular area here. So now we can definitely then see that once we had a break of structure here, we did have a break of structure here to the upside. This was the last break of structure to the upside following the 4 hour time frame, and since then we have not had another break of structure to the upside again. Neither has this market closed below this origin. So these are simply internal structures. Now we just have to start analyzing these internal structures, because since we're on the higher time frame, it doesn't mean that we are not going to find our positions within this structure here. Then so what we then do is we can step down, let's say go into the 1 hour time frame. Since then, following what the market has been doing internally from here, we can then see that following these structures here, we were on a downward trajectory. So far so good. And this was that last break of structure here to the downside here, and this was our last break of structure. Now we're analyzing the internal structure so we can get our positions inside there. And this is where the change of character took place per se, right? And yeah, it gave us a retracement to get an entry from here. So since then we had break of structures, we had been moving upwards, and we then had a bearish push which did close below this, giving us a break of structure to the downside, right? And having this break of structure to the downside, we definitely know the market has to definitely retrace and react from one of these areas here. It could be from here, it reacted from here. In another case, it could be from this area here, and so on and so forth. But as I said, what makes you understand where your order block is valid is where you find the change of character. So I'll step down to the 15 minutes so we can clearly see what actually happened around there. So once we had this, you can call it a change of character per se, not necessarily a break, because we were all bullish here, then actually cleared out this main origin here, and then definitely that's a change of character, not a break of structure. We then had that change of character there. So once we had this change of character, you know so well that the market is definitely going to want to like retrace. Now you can see all of this. This is just inducement, right? These are people that have been trying to sell this market at this point. But understanding how the market works, definitely market makers will want to definitely take out all of these guys first, and then you then enter. They then enter the markets when all of these guys are liquidated. So now, at this particular point, we then see that once all of these guys were taken out, even if you wanted to find a trade from here, you would have still gotten one. This is one I actually caught where this was the last break to the downside. This is the origin that caused it, and once you break, you wait for the retracement and you enter to the top, and you get going, right? Now once you got to this particular area, knowing that this particular change of character is what is in the larger picture, definitely you know that okay, I should be very careful once it's arriving potential zones like this. So once it gets here, we don't just enter because it got here. Now stepping this down, or not just even looking at the way it is from here, you can then definitely see that we were all bullish. This was a break to the upside, we had another break to the upside, we had here was just a weak, it was not a break to the upside per se, but you can definitely see that this is the origin which it had, right? And from this origin, this is where a change of character happened, making us understand that all along we had just been bullish. The market was never closing below, but out of a sudden it's closing below here, dishing out that change of character to the downside. It gives now the retracement. We enter, this is where the entry is supposed to have been, right? I did enter this trade, and since then it just took us downwards and so on and so forth, right? So that's where it all happened per se, and since then we had been in that downward push. It gave us that good TP hit. Now what's happening? Why is the market reacting from this point here? Why should we switch our perspective to being bullish? If we step up back to the higher time frame to see where we really are, we can clearly see that, let me step to the 4-hour time frame so it becomes clear. We can clearly see that this was that break of structure that we had on the higher time frame, and here there was a huge fair value gap as an inducement. Now we can definitely see that this was what was really attracting the markets, because the markets love moving towards direction where there's imbalance to recorrect the move that actually previously took place. So if you go to the 2-hour time frame there, you can see at, okay, it reacted from here, but has there been any kind of move for us to make a move as well? Not yet. No. Waiting to see some confirmation around this zone. We'll step down one more time. You can see that, okay, it's then showing us something. Let me step to like the 15 minutes time frame so we can see. If we look closely, this was like the last break of structure here to the downside here. That last break to the downside here. And you can see clearly that the market did take this out from this zone here, and dished out that retracement for us to enter through. Normally I would not have entered from here because I would have waited for it to come around this area here before I would have made a move. So nonetheless, we let that go. The market did give us another break of structure to the upside. Once it gave us that break of structure to the upside, the next thing which happened was we definitely saw that once you got to this layer here, you can definitely see this is just liquidity here sitting above, and this is where the market had to clear. So I definitely knew that the market will react from somewhere around this zone, and once it came to this potential zone here, this is where the entry was made. Now this is not the confirmation entry. Now there are times when you can sense confirmation entry when you're not really sure as to where the market will react from, and there are times when you need to wait for confirmation, right? And what I'll say is that it's always good for you to wait for confirmation, by the way. Don't just go with a pending order as such. So if you step this to the 5-minute time frame, let's see if we had a confirmation entry around there. I think it did give us a confirmation entry. I think the confirmation entry was quite clear, because if you look at it closely, this was like the last break to the downside. We had an origin here, we did have an origin here. So you see the market cleared this one out, and once it cleared it out, you can see that this retracement here, you would have been waiting to enter around this zone here. This is where you would have been waiting to enter this particular market once you got here to just move to the top, right? So that's where you should have been waiting for it, and you can see that since then that day has been a key area, because even if you entered and let's say your TP area was quite ahead, definitely even if you retrace and you were patient enough and you knew how to like hold your position, you would have still been in a win-win situation. So that's it for today, guys, and I wish you guys the best in your trading journey. So don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and keep following for more insights, and we'll keep analyzing these charts together. And make sure you execute your positions. Don't be someone who just watches, but learn to execute as well. With that being said, see you guys next week Saturday.